Picture this. 40 million Americans are watching live television when a single photograph slams onto a desk with the force of a thunderclap. In just 19 seconds, a roaring studio falls into suffocating silence. Trump's smirk collapses. His eyes dart like a cornered animal. What you're about to hear is the story of one night that could still bring down a former president today. The cameras wake first in the debate studio. LED walls pulse with countdown numbers, each one glowing like the tick of a fuse. Every wire, every cable lies in perfect black lines. The studio breathes like a miniature America waiting for battle. Reporters scribble last-second notes while trying to read each other's faces. Activists clutch signs they smuggled in anyway. Political aides stand rigid, already rehearsing the spin they'll give when this is all over. But in the shadows just beyond the curtain stands Jasmine Crockett. Her hands rest lightly on a leather folio, fingertips tapping in rhythm with the red blink of the cameras. She's calm but not passive. In her head, she runs through it again, opening statement, pivot, attack. Then she lets it go, eyes scanning for any detail she can weaponize. Trump is already on the other side, laughing with staff, leaning against his podium like it's his living room fireplace. When a producer brushes his jacket, he doesn't move, just keeps looking at himself in the monitor, smirking like he's already won. He has no idea what's coming. The countdown hits 30 seconds. Suddenly, everyone seems to be breathing the same heavy, electric air. George Stephanopoulos steps forward, adjusting his earpiece, his tone warm but sharp. The applause sign blinks to life. Royal blue light washes across the stage, and across the country, TV volumes click up a notch. Trump walks forward with that familiar swagger, soaking in the applause, glancing left and right like a king greeting his court. That smirk stays fixed. Jasmine steps into her mark without a word. She doesn't smile. She doesn't nod. She just watches the silence between them, sharp enough to cut through the noise. The first question comes, immigration policy. Trump launches into his answer like a showman, hands slicing the air, voice rising and dipping like he's working a rally crowd. America can't survive if we let people pour in like water through a broken dam, he declares, then turns toward Jasmine with that familiar smirk. This congresswoman is too soft, too naive. She thinks hugs and hope will stop crime. A ripple of laughter rolls through parts of the audience. But Jasmine doesn't rush to speak. She lets his words hang long enough for Trump to think he's won. Then she leans in, gaze steady as steel. Mr. Trump, she says, voice calm, facts aren't soft. And some facts, like who you partied with, never fade. A shift ripples through the room. The kind that happens when people instinctively sit up straighter. What happens next will change everything. But Trump isn't backing down. He tilts his head, scanning her outfit with mockery. Nice jacket, he says, voice dripping sarcasm. Guess they don't pay you much in Congress. Some chuckle, others frown, sensing he's crossed a line. Cute speeches, but no real results, he continues, hands spread wide. Jasmine doesn't bite back right away. She lets the silence hang heavy and uncomfortable. You can almost hear the cameras waiting. Trump shifts, that grin fading just enough to notice. When she finally leans forward, her voice is calm, but the edges are razor sharp. If you want to talk about who understands America, let's talk about the company you keep. The studio reacts instantly. A low murmur ripples through the crowd like the first gust before a storm. Trump blinks, feigning confusion. I have no idea what you're talking about, he says, but his smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. Jasmine tilts her head, studying him like a chess player before the killing move. Don't worry, she says softly. We'll get there. The Hamptons always comes back around. Her fingers brush the folder at her side, not opening it yet, just letting the idea breathe. Trump tries to laugh it off, but it comes out thin. The cameras catch that flicker in his eyes as he reaches for his water. You remember the Hamptons, don't you? Jasmine leans in, voice low. The White Party. And who stood beside you that night? The words land like dropped glass. The reaction is instant. Whispers, raised eyebrows, gasps. Someone in the third row mutters, "Oh no." She didn't loud enough for the microphones to catch. For a split second, Trump's face betrays him. Just a flicker, the jaw tightening, eyes narrowing before snapping back into that public mask. But the cameras caught it. They always do. Little did anyone know, miles away in Brooklyn, Marcus Shade Johnson sits up on his leather couch, gold chain catching the TV's glow. As soon as Jasmine mentions a white party, his eyes narrow like a man seeing a ghost. He grabs his phone, thumbs moving fast. I was there that night. Call me if you need me. The message shoots through the ether straight to Jasmine's aide. Back in the studio, the commercial break hits. The audience buzzes, some whispering theories, others staring at Jasmine like she just cracked open a safe on live TV. Her aide slips between cables, phone in hand, leaning down to whisper urgently, "Shade says he was there. He's ready to back you." Jasmine's eyes light up, not in surprise, but recognition. That single piece of news is like slipping a new bullet into the chamber. She doesn't just have her own truth anymore. Now she has a witness. Across the stage, Trump isn't smiling. He leans toward his lawyer in the front row, exchanging a look that speaks volumes. The kind you only give when you're planning damage control before the damage is even done. The red camera light blinks back to life. Trump tries to drag them into safer waters. "Let's talk about the economy," he says, voice thick with faux calm. But Jasmine doesn't move. "We'll get to the economy," each word crisp and cutting. "But first, let's finish that night in the Hamptons." It's not a request. It's a command, and the weight of it ripples through the crowd. Trump forces a chuckle, low and brittle. "More fake news," he mutters, but the microphone betrays the dryness in his throat. "You know," Jasmine says, voice suddenly lighter, almost conversational, "some people from that night aren't here to defend themselves anymore, and others are ready to talk." It lands like a gut punch dressed as a whisper. Through the harsh studio lights, the first bead of sweat appears on Trump's temple, glinting in 4K, beamed into millions of living rooms across the country. This is where it gets absolutely insane. Jasmine leans forward, elbows on the podium, voice dropping so the microphones pull her words closer. What if the whole country could see the one photo you've spent years trying to bury? The oxygen seems to thin. A murmur rolls through the audience like a low tide before a wave. And for the first time all night, Donald Trump doesn't have a comeback. But wait, it gets even more incredible. "Let me paint you a picture," Jasmine begins, gaze locked on Trump like she can see straight through him. It's the Hamptons. White tents stretching across manicured lawns. Champagne towers, so tall you had to crane your neck to see the top. Music spilling into warm summer air like liquid gold. The audience leans in, the image taking shape in their minds. She doesn't rush, letting each detail land. There were movie stars, politicians, athletes, men in crisp white linen who thought the rules didn't apply to them. And there you were, in a white suit so bright it could blind you, sitting at a private table, away from the crowd, away from the cameras. Trump's fingers tap against the podium, once, twice, 3 times. A nervous tick too small for him to notice, but too obvious for cameras to miss. And I remember one handshake in particular. Jasmine continues, voice dropping a notch. "Between you and a man whose name has been splashed across headlines for all the wrong reasons. A man who months later was indicted for money laundering, tax evasion, and worse." She lets those words, and worse, trail off like the echo of a door creaking shut in a dark hallway. Trump cuts in desperately. "A setup. It's all set up. I meet thousands of people. I don't know every handshake I've ever had." His words come fast, trying to outrun a memory that refuses to stay buried. But then comes a moment that breaks the internet. Jasmine's hand moves to the folder by her podium. No rush, no dramatic flourish, just smooth and deliberate. She pulls out a single sheet, lifts it with 2 fingers, letting the lights hit it just right. It's not crystal clear grainy, like you'd expect from an old camera phone, but the shapes are undeniable. 2 men side by side, both in white. One unmistakably Donald Trump. The other, a man the country knows from headlines and indictments. The audience reacts before anyone says a word. A ripple, half gasp, half murmur rolls through the studio. Trump breaks first with short, sharp laugh too high-pitched to sound natural. That looks like something your interns made on Photoshop during lunch. but the way he avoids looking directly at the photo tells its own story. Funny, Jasmine says, tilting her head almost amused, because the lighting, the angle, even the champagne tower in the background, they all match the white party that year, down to the last detail. Phones come out across the audience. By the time the control room switches cameras, Twitter is exploding with side-by-side comparisons. But you won't believe what happens next. The studio doors open. A figure appears, tall, broad-shouldered, walking with deliberate steps. The lighting catches the outline first, then the face. Gasps and scattered cheers erupt as recognition sweeps the room. It's Marcus Shea Johnson, the same man who texted during the break. He doesn't smile or wave, just walks forward with the gravity of someone carrying a truth too heavy to keep hidden. Trump's jaw tightens, a subtle clench the 4K cameras don't miss. George raises his voice. "Marcus Johnson, were you at the white party in the Hamptons that year?" Marcus nods slowly. "Front row. And I remember exactly who I saw." The studio freezes. Trump laughs suddenly, sharp and too loud. "Oh, here we go." But everyone can hear the strain in his voice. Then the doors open again. This time, a smaller figure moves with quiet confidence. A woman in a simple black dress, hair pulled back, carrying something unexpected. A scuffed vintage camera. "This is Tasha Green," George announces, former event staffer at the white party. Trump's confusion shifts to a forced grin. "Never heard of her," he says with a laugh that doesn't land, but his eyes drop to the camera she's holding, and his smirk falters. Tasha steps to the microphone, voice calm but weighted. "I worked that party. I saw things I was told to forget. And I didn't." She holds up the camera, letting the lights catch its worn edges. "I took something that night. Something the public's never seen. What happens next will shock you to your core." Tasha opens her bag with the care of someone defusing a bomb. From inside, she pulls out a sealed envelope. Thick, stiff, heavier than paper should be. She walks toward Jasmine. Their eyes meet for just a second. No words, but the exchange says everything. Jasmine takes the envelope, tears it open, and slides out a glossy, high-resolution photograph. Gasps start before the image even hits the screen. 2 seconds later, it fills the giant display behind them. Crystal clear. Donald Trump in a white suit, hand clasped with the indicted businessman. And over Trump's shoulder, blurred but unmistakable, Sean Diddy Combs' mid-laugh, holding champagne. The studio erupts. Some clap, like they've been waiting years. Others gasp so loud it echoes into the microphones. Someone shouts, "Oh my God," before dozens of reporters start hammering their phones. Trump's reaction is instant, a strained laugh, shaking his head. "This is ridiculous. That's nothing. I take pictures with thousands of people." But his smile doesn't match his eyes, and the cameras catch that too. Jasmine doesn't look at him. She lets the photo hang there like a courtroom exhibit no one can unsee. "Tell me," she says slowly, "how many of those people are under indictment, and how many of those parties were kept off the record?" Twitter explodes. George tries to cut in, but Jasmine keeps going. "You called it fake news, but there's the suit, the handshake, the company you kept. But wait, there's more." And this is where Trump completely falls apart. Jasmine opens another folder with deliberate care. "It wasn't just a handshake," she says, voice calm and measured. "There was a deal." Trump's eyes narrow, something flickering across his face before the practiced smile returns too quick. "A deal? That's ridiculous. Totally made up. What if I told you there's a paper trail?" Jasmine adds quietly. Trump's hand on the podium twitches, barely, but enough for the cameras to zoom in. "People forget," Jasmine continues. "Cameras weren't the only thing at that party. There were contracts, signatures, things that don't just vanish." She reaches down, pulls out a slim manila folder, sets it on the podium with deliberate care. "You want fairy tales? Let's try a little nonfiction." She slides out a single sheet, black and white, edges worn, FBI watermark faint but unmistakable. A contract, blown up on the big screen. 2 signatures side by side, Donald J. Trump and the indicted businessman's shell company. The room goes silent, then erupts. Reporter fingers clatter on keyboards. Trump's voice pitches higher. This is nothing, completely fake. Photoshop, deep fake, whatever they're calling it now. But Jasmine points at the date typed neatly at the top. August 14th, 2015. The exact night of the White Party. The audience catches it instantly. The camera captures every detail. Trump's stiffening shoulders, the flicker in his eyes when he glances at the screen. George leans forward. Mr. Trump, are you saying this contract from FBI archives is fabricated? And then comes a moment that changes everything. Trump hesitates, mid-sentence. His throat catches, a crack in the sound. Subtle, but it cuts through the room like breaking glass. Mr. Trump, George says, words slow and heavy. Is this your signature? It lands like a punch. Trump freezes, the question hanging like a suspended blade. His gaze darts to his lawyer in the front row, searching for a signal. His lips part, close, part again. Nothing comes. Jasmine doesn't blink. She lets the silence stretch, every second wrapping tighter around him. The contract on screen seems to pulse under the lights. Finally, Trump clears his throat, forces a laugh that lands flat. It's ridiculous. Anyone could fake that. But the timing is off. The pause has already been seen, felt, burned into memory. You had your chance to say no, Jasmine says softly. It wasn't a shout, it was a quiet verdict. Within minutes, the clip detonates across the internet. Headlines scream, Trump silent on contract question. The replay loops endlessly. Trump's jaw tightening, the camera zooming on his signature. Jasmine holding steady like she'd been waiting her whole life for that exact moment. In newsrooms from New York to L.A., producers bark orders to keep it on air. Even Fox defenders can't completely wave away the weight of evidence on screen. The pause becomes a cultural moment, the pause heard around the world, as late-night comedians call it. But the real power isn't just in exposing secrets. It's in what Jasmine says next. The red light blinks back to life. Jasmine sits tall, the weight of revelation hanging in the silence before she speaks. Her voice comes low at first, steady and deliberate. Power without accountability is a danger to every American. She pauses, letting the words settle like stones dropped in still water. The cameras stay locked on her face, aimed at millions watching at home. It doesn't matter if you voted for me or against me. It doesn't matter if we agree on taxes or schools. If we start letting the powerful live by different rules, the rest of us stop living in a democracy. In living rooms across the country, people lean in without realizing it. Her tone sharpens on that last word like a door slamming shut. If we stay silent when we know the truth, she continues, voice dropping to almost a whisper, whose side are we really on? The question doesn't demand an answer. It plants itself in the gut, heavy and uncomfortable. The applause begins softly, then swells until it fills every corner of the room. She rises slowly, deliberately, the way a fighter does after going all 12 rounds and knowing she left nothing undone. The lights follow her as she steps off stage, past the cameras, past frantic producers. Her head is high, shoulders square. The applause doesn't fade. It follows her, spilling into the hallway, echoing like the sound of a promise kept. The last shot lingers on her silhouette as she pushes through the studio doors and disappears into the night. Sometimes the greatest power isn't in speaking the loudest, but in daring to speak the truth when the whole room wants you silent. In life, there will always come a moment when you must choose between safety and truth, and that moment will define who you are. When it's your turn, will you stay quiet or will you stand?